Getting on to the video, this week I'm going to be teaching you how to hit a rail on skis, and this trick is another one like how to ski switch, where it's not necessarily much of a trick, but it's more of one of the fundamentals to skiing. So for those of you who are just beginning, you might find this very helpful. I'm going to touch on a few key aspects that most people overlook. So let's go ahead and get started here. First things first, you guys need to make sure that you have boots that fit very well. You don't want your foot moving around really at all in your boot. The tighter your foot fits in your boot, the quicker the reaction time you'll have on rails. So you really want to make sure your boot does fit well. It actually will make a difference on how easily you'll be able to maneuver on rails. If you have never hit any sort of rail before, I highly suggest hitting a box 50-50 first so that you can understand the way that your body's going to react when it hits a slippery surface. It's important to understand that when you're on the rail, it's very slippery because that's the whole point of it. And you shouldn't make any sudden movements because if you do, you're most likely going to lose your balance and fall. As you begin to approach the rail, whether you're going to hit it straight or sideways, you're going to come in with your knees bent and pressure on your shins. That way when your tips start to leave the lip, you can pop straight up. You don't want to fully extend necessarily because that'll be an excessive use of pop and you probably won't be balanced when you hit the rail and there'll probably be too much impact. Pay attention to see how I approach this rail and how my knees are already beginning to bend before I even get to the lip of the jump, and I have pressure on my shins. So as I approach the lip, my tips come off the jump and I begin to extend my body a little bit. But notice how gradual that is. I go in with my knees bent, and then as I start coming up, it's all gradual motion. Then I land on the rail and I have my knees bent again with my feet about shoulder width apart. All that's extremely important in making sure that you're successful in sliding a rail. Now that was an urban style rail I did just hit, so I'm going to go back to a little bit more basic rail. Here's a box, and you can see as I come off the box, I was not able to turn 90 off, so I landed sideways. It's actually one big problem I see a lot of people do, is where they'll be on the rail sideways and they won't be able to go either switch or straight to land. The reason for this is because you have to pedal a little bit, especially on boxes, and if you don't know what pedaling or scissoring is, please go to my how to spin off rails tutorial. I will briefly cover that right now though. So if you're not able to turn, switch, or straight when you get to the end of the rail, if you want to land switch and you're going right foot forward, you have to jump on the left side of the box and then press on your toe. And then if you want to land straight and you're going right foot forward, you want to land on the right side of the box and press on your heel. This will make you spin 90 degrees to the right. When you first go to hit a rail, you can either hit it straight or from the side if it's a ride-on. If it is a ride-on, do whatever you are more comfortable doing and it's easier for you. And then when you get comfortable doing that, do it the other way too. That way you're able to do both. When you do hit a rail straight on, you are going to come in with your knees bent as well, and then you're going to pop slightly onto the rail and then jump sideways a little bit. So you want to make sure your shoulders come up as well. I do not recommend hitting an urban rail straight on like I did here. It is very risky and not a good way to do it. It's better to learn to come on from one of the sides and do it that way. So the trick to hitting an urban style rail is being able to hit a rail straight on very comfortably. Once you mastered hitting a rail straight on, you really should have no problem transitioning from that to hitting an urban style rail. Okay, so here are some of the small differences. As you come up the lip, your feet might have to be a little bit less spread apart than they are if you're just riding onto a ride-on rail. And so when you come up, you're going to watch your tips come off the lip, and you're not going to jump super high. If you jump super high, your tips may catch the rail and like maybe make that counteract action where they kind of go down first and then you'll catch the rail. So you don't want to do that. You want to come up, and as you're coming up the lip of the jump, you're going to spring straight up and your tips are going to go up only. They're not going to go down at all. So maybe like pick up your toes as well. And as they go up, you're going to watch them go over the rail, and you're going to look down at the end of the rail as you do this. Looking at the end of the rail will help you get the whole rail and not fall off early. If you keep falling off early, try looking at the end of the rail as you get on, and that will help you a lot with getting the whole rail. Okay, so when you hop on the rail, you want to make sure you're not just twisting your feet like it did in this video. Watch how my feet are twisted, yet my shoulders are still facing frontwards. You want to make sure your shoulders are not facing down the hill when your feet are turned sideways. You want to make it so that your feet are completely sideways on the rail and your shoulders are also completely sideways, all facing to the side of the mountain, not down it. Learning this now will help you tremendously in the future when you go to do either switch ups or twos out, because it will allow you not to get stuck with only turning your feet, but your whole body will rotate. If you don't learn to have your shoulders correctly and you go to do tricks, you'll end up looking something like this, where your shoulders are actually facing forward the entire time and you're just pivoting your feet. You can actually see my shoulders are facing straight the entire time. My hands move and my feet move, but my shoulders never did, and this is why I struggled so much on it. Now compare that with the same trick, but see how I get on the rail, my shoulders are completely sideways with my skis. I do the front swap and then I land again and my shoulders are now the opposite way, but they're completely sideways, and that allows me to do 450 out. Once you get into more technical tricks, you won't be able to do the 4s and 6s out if your shoulders are not correct. Sometimes you can get away with it on 2s out, but I highly suggest learning the proper way. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is hitting kink rails. It's not all that difficult, but I do want to mention a couple things. Okay, there's really two key things to hitting a kink rail. Number one, and the most important, is commitment, and number two is going to be absorbing the kink with your knees. So as you're approaching the rail, you're going to hit it like you would any other rail, and when you get on it centered, you're going to look at the kink, and then as you get to it and you start to go up it, you're going to suck your knees in with it. You want to make sure your knees are bent, your shoulders are facing the right way, and your feet are about shoulder width apart, so that when you get to it, you can really pull your knees up, and that way most of the force getting applied to you is getting sucked in through your knees, and you don't get thrown off weird. If you're having trouble getting hold down flat down rails because you fall off right when it goes to flat, it's really one of those things that you have to keep doing over and over again and get past the mental block of just hitting it. You need to just commit 100%. I used to fall off all the time before the flat because I would just kind of jump off because I was scared. It's all commitment. And I hate to say this in a how-to video, but if you keep falling off on a kinked rail, the only way to fix that is to commit. Alright, so that's going to be it for this video. I will see you guys next week.